Welcome to the OutLoud Story Slam. Tonight's theme is stuck, and we have been stuck for the last 20 minutes trying to get Facebook to go live. So thank you again for bearing with us while we tried to navigate the technology. All of us have been stuck for several months, and I think we all have a lot of stories that are associated with the last few months and stories that indicate where we've been stuck in our lives. Like right now, as I'm trying to talk, I'm stuck. Let's see. So the OutLoud Story Slam was originally created as an offshoot of the Clallam County Story People of Clallam County. We took it over a couple of years after that, after it was fairly well established. We have been trying to do slams before COVID in Port Angeles and in Sequim. And now we're trying to do them online. So tonight we do have a poll on Facebook and I believe in Zoom. The poll tonight is to please tell us about a time you were trapped between a rock and a hard place. Normally these slips are anonymous. Obviously they won't be now because your name will be tagged with them. But we'd love to hear your little anecdotes and we will read them between tellers. Right now we have 5 tellers tonight, and we're going to try to go hour and a half. We might have a couple of more after our break. So all stories are meant to be 5 minutes with a 60-second wrap up. You'll hear the tootle of the flute when your 5 minutes is up. That means you've got 60 seconds or 59 seconds to wrap it up. Then you're going to hear this. And then we're going to mute you. maybe not.
Like so a dictatorship.
His stories are first person, true stories, something that has happened to you, not your cousins, nephews, brothers, not your grandfather. This is also not time for a political rant, please. And it is a story that's, entertaining, a story that has an arc, a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's very, very important when you do storytelling. Something that's going to leave your audience, wondering what happened next. Let's see here. What else is on our list?
Talk about how maybe it's different from a normal slam?
Go for it. You're sitting right here, too.
So ordinarily we do a slam where we have judging and it's a bit of a competition. This time around, there's no penalty for going over your time, but we just ask that you respect it. And we just want it to be a share. So anybody who's maybe watching in the audience too, you can be inspired to come and tell one of our future events because you all have stories and we want to hear them. So this is just a friendly kind of exchange of like, we're all going on insane in our own heads and it's nice to get it out there. So we want to hear what you guys have to say.
Yeah, Nessa and I probably won't tell tonight, but we have several little anecdote stories which are not 5-minute long stories, but the theme stuck reminded me of a time about 25 years ago. I was getting married and I had a bridal shower. Prior to my bridal shower, I was in college and my mom was still paying my phone bill, and I really, really liked the 1-800-PSYCHIC phone numbers, and I got a little bit of trouble, but my mom thought it was a joke, and she invited a psychic to my bridal shower. And this was something that was very crazy and outside of her personality. My mother is a Catholic woman, and psychic, Catholic, it doesn't really mesh. So this woman shows up at my bridal shower, and I of course get to go first, and she's very cagey with me. She's not giving me this like full reading I was so excited for, and she basically tried to just kind of like rush me out of the seat, and I was a little bummed. And then she gave everybody else these beautiful readings, and I was so jealous. I was like, why won't this woman talk to me? Well, let's see. 25 years later, I'm in a divorce that has lasted 2.5 years and has no ending in sight. I still think to myself, what did she know? So that is just a tiny little anecdote story. And we have our list tonight. And Heidi, you're going to be going first. So Heidi is a teller who has told many times at our Story Slams in Port Angeles and Swim, I believe. She's part of the OTA, which is Olympic Theater of Arts here in Squim, and we're very glad that she's with us. Please put your hands together for Heidi. You got the stage.
And no, she doesn't yet.
Oh,
Wait, we're going to spotlight you.
There you go. Ta-da.
Thank you. So my story tonight is stuck, and it goes back quite a few years. So we're going all the way back to 1965, and my boyfriend invited me to the junior prom that year. And this was a big deal, and the school decided that to keep the kids safe, they would have an all-night party after the prom, and all you needed was a signed permission slip from your parents to get in. But once in, you had to stay until it was over at 7 in the morning. My boyfriend, Steve, asked his father if he could drive the brand new Ford Mustang. So this is only the second year it's in production, and it was brand new, and he only had his license about 6 months, but his father said yes and gave him the keys. He told his dad he would pick me up, go to dinner, go to the school, and then in the morning take me home and come home, and that was it. So while we're dancing and we're having a wonderful time, he decides, let's leave early, go for a ride in the car, and then we can come back and go to the party. I thought, well, okay, that sounds good enough for me. Well, I thought we'd just kind of like drive around the neighborhood or something. I didn't think he was going to do what he did, but he decided, no, we're going to take the highway, the winding highway through the mountains over to the beach. And I know that's like a 45-minute drive at best. So now we're getting really close to that cutoff time where they're not going to let you into the all-night party. But okay, so we drive over, and we have lots of things to talk about, and it's really nice. And he pulls off on some side road and goes around the corner, and we have this unbelievable lookout right out at the ocean, full moon, so romantic. Well, things got a little hot and heavy. Now, you have to know, I was a good girl. I didn't lie to my parents. I was not going to have sex before marriage, all these things. And it was really important to me. But that night, I got stuck with a really bad reputation, and it wasn't my fault. So when I said, Steve, this is enough, we better head back over to the school, he agreed. And he put the key back in the ignition, started that car up, put it in reverse. Nothing happened. The tires are spinning. We are in sand. We are stuck. So no matter how he turned the wheel, no matter how fast he revved the engine, we didn't go anywhere. He tried pushing. I got out. I tried pushing with him. We couldn't do anything. So he's still in his powder blue tux with a ruffled shirt, and I'm still in my red long gown with heels. So I get back in the car. He tells me to lock the door. And now he is going to go back to the road, find a payphone, and call a tow truck. So back in 1965, no cell phones, no ATMs. And he's gone for quite some time. I'm in tears because now I've done the horrible thing. I am not where I told my parents I would be. I'm not what I'm supposed to be doing. This is the end. When he finally shows up, he's in a tow truck. The guy hooks it up, and while he's doing this, Steve is dancing around like a crazy person. Don't scratch the car, don't scratch the car, it's brand new, don't hurt the car. Well, the guy hooks up the cables to the car, yanks it out. It's nothing. It took nothing to get it back on the pavement. So we thank him. The guy looks at Steve and he says to him, that'll be $80. And Steve goes, I don't have $80. I got 20. And he looks at me and I go, I got 10. So he says, look, I know what you guys are up to. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take the spare out of the car. And Steve just about craps his pants right there. And he says, here's my card. You come back tomorrow with your dad and bring me my $80 and I'll give you your spare back. So that's what we do. And then we drive all the way back to where the school is in silence. We're too late. It's almost 3 o'clock in the morning. So we go to a Denny's. Yes, in 1965, they had Denny's. They were open 24 hours. So we think we'll get breakfast and you can still drop me off so it looks like I stayed at the party until 7 a.m. So I have t-shirt and shorts and sandals. So I take it and go into the bathroom and I take off my gown, take off my pantyhose and heels. I put on the t-shirt, shorts, and a pair of sandals. I pull my hair down, brush it out. I try and wipe all this mascara off my face that has been running down from all the crying.
Yeah.
And I walk back into the restaurant and there's Steve and he's still in his tux and he's sitting in a booth. I go, why didn't you change? He says, we can't go on with this. We have to just fess up to what's going on.
Wow.
Oh, now that means I have to do the same thing. So he drives me home. I reach in the backyard, in the back seat. I grab my shoes. I grab my dress. I go in the house. Luckily, my parents were sound asleep and didn't even wake up. So I think I might have gotten away with something. Steve, of course, gets home. He didn't get away with anything. His parents had volunteered to be chaperones at the party. And when we didn't show up, they became worried and then furious. So they've been at home for 2 or 3 hours waiting on him. Of course, his dad runs out immediately and checks the car. And then he has to tell his dad what they have to do. And the next day, that's what they do. They drive back over there. He gets them the money, gets the spare tire. Steve is grounded for the entire summer. However, his dad also cleaned the car to make sure there was nothing in the car that shouldn't have been in the car. Now, this is when he finds something. And he calls my parents and has a long conversation with them because in the back seat on the floor are my pantyhose. So I was stuck with this whole bad situation. And now I'm stuck with the bad reputation that I did something I didn't do. So, and that summer I was stuck without a boyfriend.
Bravo, bravo.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you.
Those are my parents. They would have been all over you guys in the back of that car. I have crazy parents. But yeah, thank you so much for coming out. And it's really nice to have people like Heidi on here. We've been trying to really kind of cultivate the community that we had coming to the theater before, and it's been a struggle. I mean, things are different, right? We live in different times right now.
Wow.
Okay, so and at any point, so I think Janae already prompted, like, if you had a thing you wanted to tell us about, like, the time you're stuck in the rock and a hard place, even our panelists or our attendees, if you want to throw in your kind of own mini anecdotes.
Where's the message?
We love. What do you mean?
The chat box is at the bottom.
Yeah, you'll see the chat
Yes.
box. So you can type into the chat box there. And if you're watching live on Facebook, I think I might try to send the question out on there. We'll see if that actually works. We haven't quite figured it out.
Hello.
Anyway, our next teller for the evening is going to be, it is Max. I just forgot your last name, Max. That is terrible. I want to say your whole name.
Bidasha.
It even says it right on there. I just before I put my foot in my mouth. And our next teller is Max. He's a local playwright here in Sequim. He just put together a film that you guys just recorded, right? The final part?
I'll get to that part.
Okay, all right, we'll let you tell it. So I'm going to spotlight Max now and give it up for Max. If you're in our, there we go. You're on.
There I am. All right. Well, hi, I'm Max Bidasha. I am a local playwright, as I said. My first play Stages debuted earlier this year at OTA. And while I was getting ready for Stages, I was on the radio about 8 times. I was in the newspaper about 3 times. And then I wrote another play called Missing Red Girls. That was a different story completely. So when I started trying to promote this, there was only one radio station that would have me on, KONP. The others would not return my call. They would not return my messages, nothing. And I had called so many times. It was very disheartening. And I thought, man, I'm stuck. Then I thought, fuck stuck. I'm going to keep calling them until they fucking call me back. So I thought, all right. So I called and called and called. And finally, the manager of the radio station, it starts with a K and ends with a squim, finally called me back and said, come over here right now. It was pouring down rain. I looked like crap. I said, fine. Came over. I was met by him, disheveled, no shoes on, took me in the back room and said, I just want to let you know that I don't agree with you using the word red. I don't think Native people should use the word red, and it's just as bad as Black people saying the N-word. And I said, I didn't come down here for a lecture. I came to talk about my play. And if you're going to be offended, you better be offended about the 6,000 missing and murdered Indigenous women in this country and Canada alone. And he didn't know what to say. So I thought, all right, great. Did my interview, took off. And then it was time for casting. And casting in and of itself was really kind of chaotic at the beginning, because I saw people who I thought would be amazing, and thought it was going to be great, and then things fell through, and I thought, man, I'm really stuck. I can't have a play if I don't have actors. So I did something I never did, was have an open audition, and the creator, the ancestors, brought the most perfect people together that I've ever seen in my entire life. And they were so excited for this. And I didn't give a shit if they never did a play. I don't care about actors. I care about real people who want to tell this message. And so we got to work quick, and we started rehearsing. And all of a sudden COVID came, screeching halt. Well, then I thought, okay, stuck. Hey, let's go to Zoom. We'll do our rehearsals on Zoom. So that's what we did. And then I was about to start grad school, and the director said, I'm going to need obviously some of your plays that you wrote. And I said, okay. So I sent some Missing Red Girls. I didn't know that out of 70, they were going to pick 6 people to do this Wednesday night community reading. And my actors were so excited to do it. After that, everyone was bawling in Zoom. There was about 80 people. And then during school, the director asked me if I could stay after class, after everyone shuffled out and virtually. And I said, sure. And he said, I just want to let you know that this play was something that we've never seen before, and it definitely needs to be told. And there's only two people from this school that are going to this festival in Virginia in January, and you're one of them.
Oh, wow.
And my mouth just dropped. And if that weren't enough, he told me that they're going to invite one of the most famous Native playwright to come and listen to the play. Her name is Larissa Fasthorse, and she's amazing. And then they gave me a $10,000 scholarship for school. My cast was so blown away, and it was, for once, Native people had a voice, and we have a voice in this town. And the one thing that I'm really tired of is hearing how stuck local theaters are, because they don't want to do plays that are diverse because they're too lazy to find people who are diverse. And my first play stages, 2 gay people, one with cerebral palsy, one with stage 4 cancer, Native, Punjabi, Mexican, a Black woman, a woman from the West Indies, an older lady, a younger person, a Chinese guy, and now I have 11 Natives in one play. And I don't want to hear that anyone's stuck. And I noticed that this area really loves to have these warm and fuzzy plays. But the moment I created a play where we actually have to reflect on our own shit and our own genocide and our own racism, crickets. And I'm so goddamn happy that I get to write this and be a part of this. And it's not just me. This is a true story that has happened time and time and time again since Pocahontas. Pocahontas was our first human trafficked person in the United States. And you're gonna see me, and you're gonna see my native cast, and we're so excited. We almost got done finished filming this 3/4 of the way, and then COVID went up again. But as soon as it goes down, we're gonna finish. This play is gonna be shown, it's gonna be broadcast, and we're gonna do it. And I just wanna let you know that I'm happy to be here, but I'm also happy to change Squim a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Max.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, you're up.
No.
Yes. I just introduced Max. We're going back and
Oh,
forth.
we're going back and forth. So
That's
sorry.
exciting. Sorry, guys. We're still figuring out our own kinks.
No, thank you so much, Max. We're in a time of unprecedented, I believe, social awareness. I don't think just for our generation. The generation under us, I think most of them that I'm in contact with really do feel like this is second nature to them. And educating our elders has been very interesting, I think, over the last few months. Things are changing. Change is uncomfortable. It's not a fun thing. And I applaud you, Max, for bringing awareness to missing red girls. So I always thank you for your the awareness and the things that you bring to the stage that normal people wouldn't. We need that type of diversity in our society and in our small town.
Jesse's giving thumbs up to everybody who can't see.
So let's see. Should I tell a little anecdote here?
Whatever you like.
So tiny little one. A lot of my stories are about when I was younger. So I was living in Seattle, and I had switched cars with my boyfriend, and he drove this just piece of shit CRX. Tiny little car, right? This tiny little thing, it had like Bondo mostly. It wasn't a color, it was just Bondo all over. And we switched for work. And I had to go to work in this Bondoed car, and so I kind of drove way back in the parking lot so no one could see me. Well, then they were like, Janae, we need you to make a delivery. I was working at a computer company, and I was like, you want me to deliver? And they said, yes. And I was like, okay. I didn't want anybody to see this car I was driving. So I load up everything in this tiny little car, swearing, and I realize I'm out of gas. So I go to the gas station, and I wait in line because this is a city. And the guy moves out of the way, and I go, and I'm in my dress business suit with heels. So I'm like, click, 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 across the parking lot. I go and I pump my gas, and then I go inside to pay for it. I pay for it, and I walk back out, and I look at where my car was, and it's not there. And so I'm like, oh my God. I got my keys in my hand. I'm like, somebody steal my car? I'm in Northgate. At that time, it wasn't very bad. I was just looking around. This guy goes, hey. I was like, yeah. He says, look down there. So I look down, and my car has rolled out of the gas station, down the hill, and hit a telephone pole before going on to the I-5 exit ramp. And I was looking at it, and I was looking around, because there's no way I didn't set the e-brake. There's no way I didn't put that car in gear. And yes, it was a piece of shit CRX, but I knew my boyfriend was going to be pissed because that car was stuck on the telephone pole. And so I honestly, to this day, because I'll keep it short, think somebody popped it out of gear because I took too long in paying for my gas, and they wanted me to get out of the way because, you know, when I came back out, there was already somebody there pumping gas. So I won't tell you how I got it unstuck. That was a whole other journey. It was very, very interesting. So a little anecdote. So next up is Mike. Mike has come to a lot of our story slams, and we always appreciate and love Mike Schmidt's stories. So Mike, you now have the floor.
Once you're spotlighted.
And there you are.
Thank you, ladies. Hello, everybody, fellow storytellers, all the participants, all those people way in the back in the cheap seats. It's so nice to be here. Even throughout the COVID-19, we're able to get together and give each other virtual hugs through the Zoom. Well, my story actually is way back as well in 1975. Minimum wage is only $2. 1975 and most of the 70s was a very interesting time in my childhood. My parents would take us all camping. Now, camping to me was an escape that I desperately, desperately looked forward to. It got me away from school and all those bullies that would torment me on a daily basis. This year, we were doing something special. Not only my parents, but also my uncle and aunt and my other aunt were going to bring all of the children and as many grandparents that could come to the place that is right behind me, Dosey Wallops State Campground. At Dosey Wallops, I've been there many times with my father and mother and my siblings, and we would camp there quite frequently. But this time was going to be different. This time, I had money. See, I had worked very, very, very hard for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I had accumulated the massive sum of $10. But in 1975, that was a lot of money, especially for a young man like myself. I was only 11. Well, I took that $10 and I bought some of those fantastic balsa wood airplanes. Now, we didn't have video games back then. Our technology was the rubber band that would connect to the propeller, that it could fly off into the wind. I also bought some beef jerky and some red vines, two of my favorite snacks.
So good.
Now, Dosey Wallops is very famous for several things. One, the Dungeness crab and the geoduck. Now, if you're a native of, well, this area, you know that is actually Dungeness crab and the gooey duck. Well, that Saturday, my grandfather, Vernon Drake, gave me his prized orange bucket and told me to go with my mom down to the mud flats that you see behind me, meet up with my dad, and go and catch some gooey duck. Well, if you've ever been to Dosey Wallops, it's a huge mud flat. And behind me, you'll see a few rivers that will dissect the trails. Well, my mother and I, we went out to found my dad, my brother, and they were busy digging gooey ducks, but they just were too fast. Well, the adults would dig, and then they would grab someone like me at 65 pounds and probably 4'2", grab me by the ankles and put me head first down the gooey duck can to grab the gooey duck and pull it out, because the men were too big. Several gooey ducks eluded my capture, and I was upset. What are we going to do? I was wanting to get back to camp because, well, there were some girls back at the campsite that I thought maybe we could make some s'mores later. I was 11, so s'mores were the big thing. It was like making out, but it was like s'mores. It was candy. So my mother and I, we turned around and started hightailing it back to camp, and I made the excuse that I had to go pee really, really bad. Well, while I was walking through the very shallow water, I seen something out of the corner of my eye. What was it? It was a very large crab, a Dungeness crab. I chased it for probably 10, 15 minutes, splashing in the 6 inches of water, just making a mess of myself. But by God, I'm catching you, crab. You're not going to elude me. You, my friend, will give your life so that I could have dinner. Well, I finally captured him. I reached my hand behind him like my grandfather and grandmother had taught me over and over and over again. I grabbed him from the behind and I put him right in my grandfather's prized orange bucket. Well, I started walking back to my mom, and she was several hundred feet ahead of me, but I could see her bright purple jacket. She wore that thing everywhere. And so I decided I'll just kind of skip my way. I'm 11. I have a crab. I've got dinner. I'm going to go take a shower. I'm going to have some s'mores later. This is going to be great. Until I realized that my dinner didn't have any water in the bucket. So I decided he's probably thirsty. I'll get him a little drink of water. So I stepped into the stream that's behind you, or behind me, rather. My knee-high, 2 size too big hand-me-down rubber boots could not hold a candle to the mud that was at the riverbed. 2 steps in, and I started to sink. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but we used to play hot lava, where you'd stay on the furniture. The other game we'd play was quicksand. I was fearing for my life. I felt my doom coming upon me as I frantically flayed around like a freaking crazy person trying to get unstuck. The worst thing about it was, the more I fought it, the deeper I sank. Further and further until the mud went over the top of my boots. The water poured in, and at that moment, I was going to die. And when you're 11 and you're about to die, that's when you get a life lesson. When things come and try to crap on your parade, shit all over you, try to really screw you and stick you, the more that you panic and the more that you fight it, the worse you're going to get stuck. All I needed to do was take 2 breaths, look at my pal, the crab, say, we're going to get out of here, and very slowly and very calmly remove both of my feet from those boots. I took 2 steps back, and I was on dry land. Thank God. I'm not going to die. I'm getting dinner. My mom had no idea of my peril. I screamed, but nothing came out of my mouth. We've all been there, especially for a couple months. Well, I caught up with my mom, and we were walking up the trail, me with my grandfather's bucket, my mom holding my other hand, and around the corner comes 6 college girls. S'mores is all I was thinking. Well, the girls looked at me and asked me, hey, little buddy, what do you got in the bucket? Well, my grandfather would always initial all of his tools at his bucket. His name was Vernon Drake. And I answered to the college students, crabs. I'm 11. All I know about it is s'mores. They giggled like you wouldn't believe. But I warned them, barefoot and all, don't go in the river. How much?
Thank you so much. Isn't it funny? We were taught as kids, I don't know about you, but growing up on Hanna-Barbera cartoons and Tom and Jerry, that quicksand was like a real thing. It was something that was a problem that you had to know how to get out of. And I remember as kids, we were always like, don't struggle, don't fight. If you can, lay down, because then you can roll off of it. And I was having a conversation about quicksand this last fall when I was in Egypt. And I was making a joke about how quicksand really wasn't a part of life, and how we really didn't need to know how to get out of quicksand, but it was such a big deal in childhood. And one of the advisors on our trip was like, quicksand is very real. And I said, not in my life. What do you mean? And he was like, the whole western border of Egypt is quicksand. That's why they've never been invaded from the west to the east, the Egyptian border, the western border. And I was just shocked to know that somewhere in the world, quicksand was as important as we thought it was when we were children. So thank you so much, Mike, for bringing that up. That reminds me of countless childhood memories. Thank you so much. What do we have going on next?
Jesse.
Jesse, you
Yeah.
are next. Jesse is one of our tellers. He has been telling with us for probably over a year now. Jesse is also a slam poet and does a fabulous job. We love hearing from Jesse. So you now have the stage.
Perfect. Thank you. Definitely give a shout out to Max. Honestly, congrats on that. I know I wanted to be, you asked me about that, I think, about being part of that. I don't know if it was that play or whatever, but life happened. I just didn't have the time, buddy, but it sounds fucking amazing. Honestly, great work on that. So quicksand, that actually comes up in my thing too, funnily, but I'll get to that. I'll get to that eventually. But yeah, being stuck is definitely a weird descriptive word. Whether you're talking, physically, emotionally, or mentally, none of it's really good. No one likes being stuck, but they all almost feel the same way. When it comes to the physical sense, whether you're stuck in an elevator or stuck in the mud, just like Michael there, the terror sets in real quick. And I remember when I got stuck in an elevator, my first immediate thought was, who could I eat first in this situation? And, and I'd literally been in there for maybe like a minute, like at that point. And we were only stuck between like the 4th and 5th floor on a 7th floor dormitory. So, help was on its way. So it's not like it wasn't coming, but my thought was like, all right, who am I going to have to kill first in this elevator of about 5 of us? But that's just kind of how I think when I get stuck, or when it comes to being stuck in the mud. I remember reflecting on like every movie moment and thinking how they almost got it right. That it wasn't quicksand though, that it would be mud is the way that I'm gonna die and how I'm gonna be swallowed whole. But when it comes to being stuck emotionally, I think, one of the hardest things feeling stuck in that way is trying to get over the passing of someone or something. And, I've experienced both of those this year with the passing of my grandmother and the passing of my dog. And those things can really hold you down and leave you feeling like you'll never be able to move on. Of course, with time, eventually it gets healed and the scar tissue can remain for a long time, reminding you of remnants from the past. But, the passing of my dog was the most recent, and I still find it hard, coming home and getting into my driveway and her not being there to greet me. And so sometimes I'll sit in my car like I'm stuck because I don't want to get out. But, that feeling of stuck, eventually it's like climbing out of the valleys and over mountains. It's things you move through. And when it becomes mentally, I don't think there's more sense of being stuck than when you're dealing with depression or addiction or both. Things, I've been down that rabbit hole way too many times. And that sense of hopelessness that you can never get out comes with it. It's terrifying to feel like that there's no way out from it, especially when you're in active use. I've watched it claim people who I would consider stronger than me, than I could ever be. And I know it'll probably be a constant struggle for both those things in my life, but letting that sense of being stuck in them, work through yourself, and, it's worth it because there's so much in life out there to go see and experience. And then the thing is, I've experienced all these versions of being stuck while growing up in Port Angeles, from being physically stuck in a town that doesn't have much for youth and, to be honest, still doesn't have much for youth, to emotionally feeling like I'll never be able to get out of this town, to leading to that mental mindset that I'll never escape. And it's interesting to see how all this has changed growing up and how it's developed, this whole area for people all over the place now wanting to come to the peninsula. I mean, I've met so many people who reside here now or were just visiting, and it's just crazy to see like the blow up here, for the better or the worse. I remember, going to the Ridge as a kid, and it was just a sleepy little tourist spot where you would maybe run into some Canadians at most. And nowadays, flooded with people. I felt like this town was going to keep me stuck for the rest of my life, but I, escaped, so to speak. I lived in Washington all my life, but I bounced around the Sound from Seattle to Bellingham, between here and there, back and forth. And I've traveled the world. I mean, not as much as I would like to have, but, I've seen enough to know that every place is special in their own way. I did the rat race in Seattle, trying to make ends meet, driving Lyft, and met enough people from around the world, picking them up at the airport to say, hey, it's not about where you've grown up at that makes you stuck. It's just the way that you look at things and how you observe the place that you're stuck at. And I'm sure almost everyone feels that way, that they've been stuck in some sort of place where they've lived, where they've grown up, maybe they moved to a place and got stuck. But being stuck is more of a frame of mind than anything. And I've come to appreciate all the things that were holding me down in this town in a way. I've back and forth, I've been back and forth across this county more times than I can count. And I always find something new and something special to enjoy every time I do it. Whether it's the people or the places, there's no place in the world I'd rather be stuck in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jesse. I feel the same way, fortunately. We are kind of stuck here, and I'm from Toronto originally, so I'm from Canada. All my family's out in Canada. One of my family members is here tonight. You'll be hearing from Josh after. We're going to take a very short break. But of all the places to be stuck, I'm quite happy to be stuck here. And I feel like, even though I'm still pretty new, I've only been here for 3.5 years. I'm it's oddly territorial. I see all these license plates flashing by as they come in, and then the whole outbreak in PA. For those of you who don't know, there are a bunch of restaurants that closed down in Port Angeles because of COVID, and I'm I blame the out-of-towners.
What gets me is the people going 10 under. Going on the highway. That's what gets me. As a former Lyft driver, the thing is, I didn't get mad in Seattle. I get mad out here when I see people doing that, and I'm like,
Absolutely. Being born and raised here, being stuck in Port Angeles was my biggest fear. After I graduated high school at 17, I moved to the city, and I got into a motorcycle accident 6 months later. As I'm laying in my bed in Harborview, the nurse and the counselors are talking to me, and they're like, you're going to go home with your parents back to Port Angeles. I was like, no, don't take me back there. Please don't make me go there. They made my parents leave the room because they thought that there was something wrong with my environment. And they're like, why don't you want to go back to Port Angeles? Why don't you want to go home with your parents? I was like, I don't want to be stuck there. I'm going to never leave if I go back. So I totally get you, Jesse. This town is the way sucking you back in, sucking you in.
I think I moved away about 5 times overall, and I've ended up back here no matter what.
Yep.
So,
Every time.
My home.
Well, it is. Our families are here, and such strong family ties. I think when you grow up small town, there's a lot of business that we got to take care of for the family. But I think we're going to take just a small 5-minute break. We haven't been at this too long. We're about 5 tellers in. So if you guys want to grab a beverage, do your thing. We're going to just take a tiny little break for 5 minutes, and then we will come back. And I believe that who's up next?
Josh, are you comfortable kicking us off after the break?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's have a little break.
So if you need
Awesome.
the bathroom, people who are viewing.
Have a little bit more
If
vino.
you are watching at home and you're like, who would love this? My Uncle Bob. Email your Uncle Bob. Tell him to come pop on.
Share it.
It.
Yes, and for you people for all of the people that can't see, that are just logged on, obviously what you're seeing right now is the panel. You can hear us, we can't hear or see you. So please give us a shout out in the chat box on Zoom or on Facebook. Give us a shout out. Let us know that you're here. Let us know where you're logged in from too, whether you're local, whether you're from out of town. We would love to know where you're from. So while we're taking this little break, if you guys could do that, be great. We also have a poll question for tonight. We always do these little slips at our live events. Tonight is tell us about a time that you were trapped between a rock and a hard place, or stuck between a rock and a hard place. Normally those little slips are anonymous, and we read them periodically through the slam. They're one of my favorite parts of a story slam, and we're trying to adjust to the virtual world and haven't figured out how to do them anonymously yet. But if you have a tiny little anecdote, tiny little story you want to write, please do it in the chat box or on the Facebook little, what do you call that, feed, the Facebook feed.
Yeah.
and we will kind of read it aloud and give you a little bit of a shout out too. So everybody go get your drinks, use the
Yeah, fill up
bathroom.
your beverage, take a pee.
And thank you everybody for joining us.
Yeah.
So Janae, before I forget, I know you were just about to leave and I stopped you, but
Fun.
at our last event, somebody from Bellingham came in,
Yeah.
and she was supposed to be on stage with you at that Moth event.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and she told me that the Moth is having virtual slams,
Yeah.
and people are signing up for that. I still haven't watched one yet, but she's won a few of those. She was good.
Oh,
Yeah.
she won a few of the virtual slams?
Yeah, she's I guess she says she's a 5-time Moth winner. So Story Slam.
Wow.
But yeah.
That's amazing. I know we've barely had time. This has been a very, very busy summer.
Mhm.
I've missed your last couple events, and I'm sorry for that. We've talked about it, and we need to attend because we miss the community. It's been very, very hard, and online just doesn't quite have the zing. But we need to kind of get behind it because it looks like this is us for the foreseeable future. I don't know, how is Kitsap doing?
It has slowed down as far as cases. We had a pretty big jump today, but things have slowed down. But we're all anticipating that it's going to be. We were this close to getting to stage 3, and now we're thinking it's going to be 2021 before that happens.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
We had a big outbreak this weekend. My school was supposed to go back in person, and I was like, I just know it's not going to happen. And of course, we were going to do 1 day a week instruction in person, and then as soon as
really?
the restaurants closed, there were 20 new cases and over the weekend.
Yeah.
So that boosted us.
Oh, there's a
to
huge,
shut
I
down.
guess there's a health department meeting tomorrow, and they're considering rolling us back to phase 1, which I think
Whoa.
is just asinine. Who knows? Maybe it's rumor, but I went to Tri-Cities last weekend or so, and they're at phase 1 modified still in Tri-Cities. And they don't even have restaurants open. They have outdoor seating, but it's 105 degrees out there. And they're all miserable over there. They've just opened hair salons. So, but people are legitimately, I mean, think of us 2 months ago. That's them.
Yeah.
2 months forward. Can you imagine still being in phase 1 modified?
I think we're going to go back.
For our tribe, we're going back to phase 1.
What's that?
Our tribe is going back to phase 1, Lower Elwha.
Wow.
Are you
Really?
just?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Phase 1.
Yeah.
Has
So
phase 1 been open down there at all?
we were open. I'll turn back my radio. But yeah, we were open. But yeah, they've with the recent, we've had I think 2 or so, 3 more on our reservation. I mean, overall, I think we've gotten 9 or so. And then that person who passed actually wasn't a tribal member, but lived down here. And so,
Oh, really?
So that's why they're taking shit seriously now. And we definitely don't want to end up like a Navajo nation. And so
right.
that's kind of one of the things I've been having to deal with, is I'm scrambling to push us back into phase 1. And so now it means for me, my mental health outreach, it's literally, you're literally meeting people. So
you're like one of the most important persons. So are you doing most of your counseling type sessions or
we just got back to doing in person about a month ago, and so I'm waiting on some of that stuff right now. They're going to release a statement. They were supposed to release it today, but they're going to wait until I think Tuesday, I guess, to kind of make it more official. But they've asked for scheduling and stuff from us, and so we're supposed to have half our staff within the area, and so or within the building, and so we're cutting things down, and so it's getting tricky again. And so now it's like we just got back to meeting clients, and and then our clientele, we lost about half our clients just because either they were too afraid to go out, or they didn't want to do the telehealth on Zoom or any of that. And so yeah, we literally went from I think 40 I think it was like 48 almost, and we dropped down to about 23 clients, and now we're back up to, I think, almost 40 again. But then it's just like, so I've been working with our mental health department, trying to figure that all out. And, you know, we're trying to stand united on this and be like, hey, you know, maybe there's a different way we can go about this. Luckily, SAMHSA allowed me to, our grant people, SAMHSA, which is like Substance Abuse Mental Health, something association. They allowed us to buy PPE and stuff and put that in our budget. And so I dropped, you know, thousands of dollars in PPE alone.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm trying to today, like, I want to make the argument like, hey, we've got, you know, a giant conference room. We can see them, you know, across the other side if need be. You know, because a lot of these people need the mental health, especially now. And I'm still waiting the moratorium for evictions to get lifted here, and I think October 16th is the deadline now. And so I'm curious when that gets lifted. You know, I mean, I'm also on the board for Serenity House still, and so I'm waiting on that ball to drop there. And you know, it's a lot of moving parts again, so that's why I'm trying to get everything in order again. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so very hard. We have dropped a lot of money on PPE at my business too, because we go in people's houses every day, and everybody is very gun shy. You know what I mean? Very, very jumpy. And I had one of our technicians yesterday call in from the parking lot and say, I think I've got the corona. And so my sister-in-law looks at me and she says, would you like to handle this? And I said, yes, I'll handle that. I put a mask on and I go out with my little thermometer. I walk out to his van and he's got his mask on. I was like, what's going on? He was like, I've lost all sense of taste. I was like, okay, do you have any other symptoms? And he's like, no. I was like, you don't feel sick? He's like, no, but I don't have any sense of taste because 2-3 weeks ago, we bought this new cinnamon toothpaste. And he was like, every morning it's like, blam, in my mouth. And he was like, and this morning, nothing. So I think I've got the corona. I was like, well, I'm not going to tell you that you have to come to work. I was like, you've got a couple choices. You can go down and do the drive-through testing, or you can go home. If you start feeling ill, then maybe tomorrow do the testing. And he was like, well, don't they make you quarantine? I said, yes, for 72 hours, you'll be out of work. But I'm not telling you that you need to come to work. And I was like, did you smoke a lot of pot yesterday? Because sometimes you can lose your sense of taste. He's like, no, I didn't. I'm thinking he's talking to his boss. He's not going to tell me anyways. And I was like, well, did you eat any spicy food? And he's like, oh, yeah, I had jerk chicken and shrimp. He was like, I was like, dude, that's probably why you lost your sense of taste. You'll probably be fine, but I think you should probably go home today. Don't freak out. You know, everything will be fine. And of course, he's fine. But we're all so jumpy, right? We got to get it, but don't get it, you know? And I think it is really affecting everybody's mental health. I would say mine included, because we're dealing with all these little fires all day long. And I don't have enough gloves, and I didn't have enough masks. And it's like, wow.
Well, I did hear that we're going to be allowed to host office. So teachers were going back, but we're back. Kids aren't coming back, but we're going to be allowed to meet one-on-one. And at least for my program, like, that'll work. I'm like, actually, that's kind of nice. Like, I would rather have interviews with my kids for, you know, see each kid once a week than try to actually engage them online or something. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how it shakes out. So.
yeah, I mean, I know the schools, that was another big hit for us too. So once the school shut down, that's where we got a lot of our referrals and stuff from. And so once we don't have eyes on the kids, and that just makes, you know, 16 to 18-year-olds right there. I mean,
and they're on their own right now.
Yeah, and they're on their own right now. And then who knows if they're, you know, making their Zoom classes, which more often than not, they're not. And so
We should have just made tonight, instead of stuck, we should have said sucks.
Yeah,
Corona sucks.
Corona sucks.
Yeah. But for everybody that's coming back, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you. To the OutLoud Story Slam. I've realized that I did not introduce either one of us in the beginning. My name is Janae Sparks, and this is Nessa Goldman.
Hey, I realize I think people may have only just seen us during all that, so sorry if you missed everybody else's beautiful faces.
Yes.
You were just looking at me and Janae. Yeah.
Yes.
I was hoping that you weren't looking at us.
Yes. Yeah, we had it on the view of everyone. Anyway, so welcome back to the OutLoud Story Slam. We appreciate you guys being here tonight. These are first-person stories, or stories told in the first person, something that happened to you personally. And we have several more tellers lined up. We're very excited. Nessa's going to introduce our next teller.
Yeah. So super excited. The next teller is my cousin. He's another Goldman. His name is Josh. He's in Toronto, so he stayed up extra late just to tune in to this for us. But like, my family's Jewish. You guys, if anybody's watched or seen me before, I feel like I've talked about it. But anyway, oration is like in our blood. So I'm super excited to have my cousin on here. And if you're ready, Josh, I'm going to spotlight you.
Oh, I'm so ready. Okay, so first of all, I just want to thank everybody for being part of this thing. All the other tellers told great stories and gave me a bunch of ideas, and I was like, oh, this is great, because I don't really know. I'm the first time here. I don't really know what this is all about. But I won't waste time. We'll get right into it. There were some themes that have already come up tonight. Janae brought up, we're talking about being stuck. Michael was talking about quicksand. We've been talking about mental health. And Janae even brought up Egypt and North Africa. My story actually incorporates all of these things somehow. Not quicksand literally, but certainly figurative quicksand. Anyways, I'm going to tell a story about how in 2009 I went to Morocco. And boy, did I get stuck. Okay, so basically I went there with my band. Okay, we formed a band to go and play, to do this hotel contract. I'd never done any kind of overseas work before. I was completely green, you know, playing music in a hotel. I was like, oh, that sounds cool. It's a job. This would be great. And we're gonna go to Morocco. I was like, okay, cool. That's interesting. That's different. I've known some Moroccans. I'm related to some Moroccans. I probably should have been worried because I know what that means. I thought I knew what that means. Now I really know what that means. But anyways. But so many crazy things happened. I could tell so many stories. I could tell you a story about how I dated some completely crazy woman who was like stalking me at the hotel, but I'm not going to tell that story. I could tell you a story about how the king told everybody to pray for rain because there was a drought. And so there was a lot of people that were like, oh, you know, because they, you know, we pray for rain. And people were like, well, you know, like the king reads meteorological reports, and he just tells the people to pray for rain, but then, you know, it'll rain because like we know it's going to rain, and the people are like, oh, praise Allah. So there's all these people that are kind of debating whether or not this is true, and I was like, I don't know what they think. I went out, it rained. Okay, so it was drought, then it rained, and then I went outside at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I looked at the sky, and I swear to God, I've never seen clouds like this in my life. I was like, these people's fucking prayers made these fucking clouds. This is crazy. Every cloud looked completely different. I was like, this place is insane. But I'm not going to tell that story. It's not the story I'm telling tonight, because we have to stay on theme here. So anyways, or I could tell you a story about how we finished the first part of the contract in Casablanca, and then we went down to Agadir, and we went to this other hotel, and the very first day, I plugged in my guitar, I leaned back, I touched the microphone, I got electrocuted on the stage. Literally been in the hotel for like an hour. So I'm lying on the floor and I can't see, and I'm just freaking out. And I'm already been there for 3 months. So I'm pissed off just because Morocco will make you pissed off. It's a crazy fucking place. So the first person that comes up to me is like, are you okay? I was like, no, I'm not fucking okay. I can't fucking see. But it's the director of the hotel who I've never met before. Now suddenly we're in trouble. And now the agent has to like bribe all these people all of a sudden, all this crazy, but I'm not going to tell that story, because that's not relevant tonight. But just so you have some idea of what the fuck this place was like. Anyways, after all this shit's over, months of being in this ridiculous place, I've been there for about 5 months, and 5 months in Morocco is kind of like maybe 7 or 8 years of regular time, because it's just like an exponential quagmire. It's not quicksand, but it is a quagmire of completely psychologically just like disturbing and frustrating insanity. I could tell you a story about how I tried to mail a letter. It took me going to the post office 4 times just to mail a single letter. And when I finally got there, I was like, do you have stamps? And the guy's like, oh, we don't sell stamps here. I was like, what? But I'm not going to tell that story. When it was finally over, it was finally the end of the contract. The whole thing is over. I've been there for 5 months. I'm going out of my fucking mind. I'm like, it's over. I'm actually going home. Like today, like we're in Agadir, we're going back to Casablanca. It's like, oh, do I have to go? Is there any other, can I just go directly to Canada from here? Like, no, all the international flights, I have to go to Casablanca. It's only gonna be 1 day. Don't worry about it. I know you want to get the fuck out of here, because I told everybody for 4 months, like, I can't wait to leave. Anyway, So we finally go back to Casablanca. It's one night. I was like, yeah, I don't want to be here, but okay, one more night. We go the next day. We go to the airport. Everything's on time. I'm like, oh shit, we're actually gonna fucking leave. We're gonna leave Morocco. This is actually going to happen, and this tormenting, ongoing, psychologically ridiculous experience is finally gonna come to an end. So we go to the airport, and everything's on time. I check in. I like, there's no problem. People are like, oh, you know, customs might be a problem. No problems with customs at all. I have like cash on me. Like, it's like, this is just how it is there. They, you know, no wiring money in home. I had like a sock full of thousands of dollars, like just in my thing. It's like, no problem. Nobody looked at my shit. No problems at all. I was like, this is great. So get to the thing. The flight's on time. I was like, this is very un-Morocco. Suddenly the flight's, this is great. So I get on the thing, I get on the plane, everything's cool. I'm in my seat, like I'm not next to some like huge person who's taking up all my space, or I was like, this is gonna be a comfortable ride home. This is actually, I'm like, are we, okay, all right. I relax, I fall asleep. I'm awoken suddenly by a message over the intercom, which is just in Arabic, so of course I don't understand it at first. And then in French, and I understand French because I speak French because I'm from Quebec. It's another story. But anyway, the point is that the voice comes on very calmly in French, but I'll translate. He goes, we're having some technical problems, and we're having some engine trouble, is what he says. I look out the window, literally like pillars of smoke coming out of the engines of the fucking plane. Both sides. I'm like, what the fuck is this? But interestingly, everybody's calm. Like everybody on the plane, this is like Muslim people, all women in hijabs, everything. The most chaotic people in the world, but suddenly everybody's calm. Like nothing. Like, so yeah, so the guy comes on the intercom, he's like, we don't wish to alarm everybody, but we just want you to know that we're having some engine trouble and we're going back to Casablanca. I'm like, you're fucking kidding me. I'm in the air. I'm like an hour or two flying through the air already and sleeping. And now we're gonna go back to this crazy, I was like, what? How? I don't even understand. So anyways, so we fly back to Casablanca and we're sitting on the tarmac or whatever it is. Is that what you call it, tarmac? Anyway, and they're like, oh, it's gonna be an hour. So we're sitting on the thing for an hour. And then they're like, okay, everybody get off the plane. And then we're in the airport now for like an hour. And they're like, you're just gonna fix the thing. But Morocco is a place of indescribable amounts of bullshit. Okay, like I should have prefaced with this. Like, there are no mountains in Morocco, but there are mountains of bullshit, okay? So we're in the airport, and the guy's like, and then we're just waiting. We're waiting. Oh, tonight, we're gonna leave tonight. So is this already like an evening flight already as it is, right? So it's like, it's midnight, and then it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and then at like 2 o'clock in the morning, they're like, yeah, we're not leaving tonight. We have to go stay in a hotel. I was like, oh, and it was like everybody on the plane is like sitting in this waiting room. And that's me. Okay, so 60 seconds. Make a long story a little bit shorter. They basically put us all on a bus. They have a hotel at the airport, but we don't stay at that hotel. They drive us 45 minutes into Casablanca for no reason to go and stay at a hotel. It's about 4 o'clock in the morning by the time we get there. And they're like, oh yeah, and the flight leaves at 8, so it's 6:30, we're coming to pick you up. I was like, so we're gonna sleep like an hour? And you're like, this is like 200 people or whatever. It was like the most ridiculous thing ever. So they drive us to this thing, we check into this hotel room, everybody's there for like, maybe sleep an hour, maybe not even sleep at all. And then everyone gets back on the bus and it's like, drove all the way back there. Now everybody smells. And now it suddenly is very unpleasant. But anyways, the point is, we finally get back to the airport. We finally get back on the plane. We finally get into the air. I'm waiting. I'm not falling asleep this time. I got to make sure we actually leave North Africa and go home. Like, this is important. And we finally do. And eventually, it's happening, and I get to Canada, and I land on the ground, and like I kiss the ground, and I'm like, I'm never doing this again. And then 6 months later, the band talked me into doing another contract and did the whole thing. That's my story.
Oh,
Thank you, Josh.
Great ending.
that was amazing. Good job.
I feel like one of those Moroccan people that Josh happens to know is me.
Yeah, I know.
before I was going, so Josh had that whole experience, and then I was gonna go with my grandmother to Morocco. And I remember, like, Josh, I'm sure you remember because I saw you right before I went.
I warned you. I told you.
You warned me, and I was like, no. I'm like, it's gonna be amazing. I was like, multi-generational trip to Morocco
Right,
with my mom and my grandmother.
And you're like, I've traveled lots of places. I know the world, you know?
No, I didn't think I knew the world, but I was excited to go to like the land of my heritage, you know?
Right.
And, but the whole time we were there, my grandmother, who is like born and raised there, hadn't been back in like 50 years, but is like, I'm from here, my people is so beautiful. And she like wants to talk to everyone, and they're like dismissing her. And they're like super rude to her. And she's like Meme, like I call my grandmother Meme, she's the cutest lady. And she's like, I'm from here. And like we were in Casablanca. It was kind of a shithole. I don't know, I'm not gonna lie. Couldn't wait to get out. But contrary to that, your flight experience, I don't know if I told you this story before, but I flew back from Israel on my birthright trip. So birthright is this like free trip. If you're Jewish, you can go to Israel, rich philanthropists pay for it. And on the way back, my flight, we're on the tarmac for like half an hour, 2 hours. Like it keeps going on. They're bringing champagne to everybody. And they're like, we're having engine problems. Okay. And I'm like, they're like, we need to get off the plane. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm like, I don't want to fly on a plane that's having engine problems. Right. And everybody, like Israelis, I don't know if you know this or if you've traveled, but they don't have the best reputation for international travel. And they are abrasive at best. There's a term called chutzpah, which is like nerve mixed with like absolutely no consideration for the people around you. And yeah, so I'm just like watching this shit show go down. I'm like, why are people wanting to get on this plane right now? I'm like, get me the hell out of this airport, no hotel bed as fast as you can. So it sounds like at least the plane getting turned around was like a little more pleasant than Morocco. So like I understand wanting to get the fuck out of it.
Yeah, it was definitely it was everything I described it.
I can tell your tax just like going.
Like honestly, it's funny because when Nessa told me about this and she's like, "Hey, you're going to tell a story? Tell us some kind of story." I was like, "Oh, I guess I'll tell a story about Morocco." I was like, "Well, wait, like my PTSD. I don't want to get all charged up and then like." So, anyways, but I'm glad I can handle. Now I can just calm down for the next 2 hours. I'll be okay. I'm gonna stay up late and just kind of meditate, and I'll be all right.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. All right. So our next stellar for the evening is, okay. So I don't know if I've actually been changing anything, but I feel like I've been trying to. Our next stellar is going to be Steve. So Steve is the host of Story Night in Bremerton. So you might have heard us chatting a little bit about his show. Janae and I do try to frequent it, but somehow
it's COVID
has made it harder. I miss driving to Bremerton and coming to tell stories at the Cloverleaf. It's always been a really great time. So we're going to spotlight Steve. Give it up for Steve Gardner.
Well, thanks, everyone. I'm going to tell a story I've told before. So if you've heard it before, hopefully there's enough that's different, or hopefully you've forgotten it. That would be bad, too, because, I want these stories to have a life of some kind of a shelf life. I was driving along the coast of Oregon. I was driving south on the coast of Oregon, and I pulled off at this rest stop, this scenic overview. I sometimes feel it's a responsibility to pull off at scenic overviews because they've taken the time to tell you that there's something beautiful out there. And there's several that I've driven past. Every time I drive past them, I feel guilty, and because they've gone to all this work and I'm just passing it by. I got to get somewhere. So this time I pulled over on purpose, and I look out over the coast, and on the left are these trees and hills, a shade of green that just seemed more vibrant than I had ever noticed before. And the water was a shade of blue. It was the middle of August, and the sky was bright. The sun was shining down. It was just the most gorgeous scene I'd ever seen. And I'd pulled over because I'd taken this drive because I had to make a big decision. A couple of years before, I had been living in Utah, and I had been there for about 10 years, which was about 7 years longer than I wanted to be there. I had grown up in Southern California, and I had gone to Utah to go to college, and it was my intention that once I graduated from college that I would go back. I would either go home to Southern California or I'd find someplace on the East Coast to live. And neither one worked out. One, because my work was fine, but I wasn't so great that I got a job right out of college. And second, my last semester of college, my parents moved to Utah. And so that was my home base. And I learned very quickly that if you want to get a job somewhere else, it's easier if you live somewhere else. And I didn't. And so there I was in Utah. I had a few jobs. I had a job for a couple of years that I didn't love. It was a fine job, but I didn't love it. And they they allowed me to leave at their insistence. And then I had another job for a couple of years. The company went under. I then did some freelance work, worked for a couple of startup companies. Both went under, and I was doing freelance work when I was making this decision. Also, I was not doing well romantically, which was one of the chief reasons to stay in Utah. I was a Mormon at the time, and I thought my odds were best if I stayed in Utah. Because a big swimming pool, I guess, is what you'd say. And I want to be careful about how I say these things. But at any rate, I had, and when I made the decision that I was going to move away, it was on the heels of having had 2 engagements to the same girl break up ugly, miserably. I was miserable. She was fine. I was miserable. And I just felt like I was stuck there. I knew I didn't want to stay there. Things weren't working out anyway. The chief reason for staying was to find someone with whom to start a family, and it just wasn't working. And I loved Oregon, and I wanted to move there. And oddly enough, in this case, I managed through a series of miracles. I managed to get a job in Oregon. I wasn't going to move until I got the job, and I got it. And the job was fine. I was working there for a while, and I was really happy in Oregon. I moved there in the middle of August, which is the kind of season we're in now. And you know how beautiful the Northwest is in the middle of August. If you don't, you look outside tomorrow. And so I was doing the job just fine. There was one night I was driving home from Portland. I live west of Portland, and I was just so happy and so nerdy or dumb that I rolled down the window and I yelled, "Honey, I'm home," out the window. It was hilarious to me at the time even. I did some dating. It was, things were going fine. I made some great friends, some of the best friends I've ever had. So things were wonderful in Oregon. And at the job I had, they gave us a week's worth of vacation the first year you work there, and it was a use it or lose it situation, and I still had stuff in Utah. So I decided I would use my week at the end of that first year, and I had committed to be there 2 years. And I drove to Utah, and I called a woman who had told me that if I ever came back to Utah to call her and we'll go out and we'll just go do something. And we went to a baseball game, which was one of my favorite dates. And it was wonderful. It was the best date I'd had in a long time. And that includes better than the dates I'd had in Oregon, which were fine, but this, somehow there was this great connection. And when I was driving back to Oregon, I was still committed to being there at least the next year or so. But I was less happy about it maybe than I had been before. And so I went to work. I went to work the first day. Things are going fine. I'm a little, when you get back from vacation, a lot of times it's just, it's a little sad the first day. And I kind of was, but I knew just another year, and then I can make a lot happen in a year. And the bosses called me in at the end of the day, and they said, here's your choice. You're either going to resign or be fired. Resigning paid more, so I chose resignation. I had done something very minor, but it was grounds enough that they wanted to let me go, and they were going to replace me with an intern that they thought they wouldn't have to pay. And that's neither here nor there, but it was sad to leave the company. But now I was at a crossroads. It's like, okay, what am I going to do? I love this place, and I think it'll work. And if I stay here, I'm going to be happy. But maybe I should reconsider Utah. And my friends were urging me to stay. My Oregon friends were urging me to stay. But I said, well, I'm going to give it some time. I'm going to think about it this week. And I decided I would go to the coast and take a drive along the coast. And I pulled off, I went down the coast, and it was kind of gray when I started up north by Tillamook, but then as I got farther south, it was just beautiful. And it was like everything you'd ever wish, if you ever wished for a sign. This was a sign saying, dude, you don't want to lose this. And I pulled off into this overlook. And again, it was probably one or two of the most beautiful scenes I'd ever seen in my life. And I looked at that and I said to myself, you know, I could see this for the rest of my life and be perfectly happy, but also be completely alone. And so in that moment, I decided I was going to move back to Utah, this place I vowed I'd never go back to. And I went back, and within a couple of months, I had a job that at the time I considered my dream job. And also within a couple of months, I met the woman I would eventually marry. And 5 years later, we brought our 2 kids up to Washington, where we've been ever since. And in the years, I was a different person when I went back to Utah. The year in Oregon had taught me some things that I didn't really expect I would learn before I went. And what I've realized over the years is that I was never stuck in Utah. I was just stuck. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, being stuck is never a great thing. Your story, and I don't know why, reminded me of a time I was in my best friend's wedding. And we're standing at the altar and they're exchanging vows, and I'm teary-eyed and I'm trying to hold it back. And then I realize I have forgotten the most important part, my part that day. And that's the wedding ring. And I'm standing there and I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, I don't have the wedding ring. I put it down. I don't have the wedding ring. And I'm literally stuck. And I kind of like side eye all the people that are standing and you know, sitting, watching this wedding. And I literally turn around and I sprint in my 4-inch heels past the pool, clack, 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 all the way up, grab the wedding ring, run all the way back, clack, 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 right? Everybody's watching me, and I can see my best friend side-eye me the whole way through. And then I'm standing back at the altar in my big old dress. I'm like, trying to hold in my breath to give her the ring, which was the next thing the pastor said when we were standing there. And afterwards, so remorseful. I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do. Literally, I'm stuck up here. I didn't know what to do, and I ruined your wedding. I don't know what. I'm so sorry. And she was like, now we got a story. And I was like, yeah, that's my people. We got a story. Just a tiny one. But again, everybody, thank you for joining us. We actually had somebody submit a little thing from our slips that we normally do. Why don't you go ahead and read that?
You want me to read it?
Yes,
Okay.
I do. I can.
So I'm going to read it anonymously. I think their name is there, but I pulled it up, so this is the way it is. One time, so we asked everybody, tell us about another time you were stuck between a rock and a hard place, or you're trapped between a rock and a hard place. One time on a scuba dive in Mexico, the dive instructor said we were doing a cave dive. I asked if it was an open or closed dive. He said it was closed. I said, I'm going to be the first one behind you. I couldn't believe when we got there, he used his tanks to make the opening bigger by slamming it into the edges. Oh, that's one way to get through. We cut my knee going. I cut my knee going in after him. I looked down and thought, oh no, blood and sharks. When I looked up, I was in a cave by myself, and all I could see was a small opening a long way away. I told myself to breathe slowly so that I didn't use up my air. Good plan. I swam to the other end, and when through the opening, there was a diver holding a pufferfish in his gloved hands. He wasn't with our dive group. I forgot all about being by myself, and the photographer. I forgot all about being by myself, and the photographer and me took over. Sorry, I'm having a hard time reading off the screen. I need print, guys. How am I going to do this online school thing? I'm doomed. I started taking pictures with my underwater camera. Then my dive group came through the opening. Later, he said he went back to get the others. He shouldn't have left me alone. Yeah, that sounds horrifying.
That sounds like
I don't know. I don't know. I
stuck.
really like breathing personally, so it's
That's
something
good.
I'm really fond of. And scuba diving, while sounds fun, like also horrifying.
You wanna tell?
All right, our
did I
next
do?
storyteller up is going to be Jody Thies. She is a dear friend, and she's also at my house. She's in my bubble because sometimes you just like need people in your bubble. Whatever
Oh,
she did,
she's like right over there. She's like literally across from you. I see.
she's
That's
literally like I could touch her. I could like there's.
all
All
right.
right, I'm in the spotlight, Jody. So let's give it up for Jody. Woo!
All right.
Okay, so I really absolutely wasn't. Can you guys hear me? Did I turn my volume up?
No, but here, no, we'll mute us.
Okay, is that better? Everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I wasn't really prepared, but and you can see this hair. This is awesome. But in the heat of the moment, I had recalled a slight, small, stuck story, and everybody had such great stories, and I just figured I would kind of maybe not wrap up the evening. There might be somebody after me, but with a little humor, because that's what I'm good at, is humor. So my best friend is famous for ordering online, and she called me up and she had ordered a spank, and she called me up and she's like, I got the spanking. I was so excited. She was going to wear it under this little black dress. She couldn't get into it. It came from China, and it was a size 4 XL. And she's like, it's so tiny. I don't even think you can get into it. Hold my beer. So I drive over and I'm like, I have to put this thing on. I'm going to make it fit, even if I get stuck. And so we hold it up, and it is like this wide. I'm not even sure I can get my thighs into it at this moment, but we go into her room, and I have my daughter with me, who probably did not need to see that. And I take my clothes off and I start pulling the spank up. And for you women out there, you'll know this. It is a full body spank, meaning it comes all the way up underneath the boobs, and then it has shoulder straps. So it's meant to hold in everything. And I'm pulling and struggling, and my best friend is hysterical on the bed. She can't even contain herself anymore. My daughter's looking horrified that I am still struggling to get this spank on. I get it all the way up, and I get it pulled up, and I get the shoulder straps up and over, and I can't breathe. There's no way this thing is a 4X, except for in China. In America, it might have been an extra small. Get this thing up, and my girlfriend, the whole backside of the wall that my backside is facing is all mirrors. And so she's laughing and snorting and can't breathe, and she's all, turn around. And I'm like, oh, I don't need to see this. I can only imagine what this looks like. And she's like, no, you can't. She's all, turn around. I turn around, and it's crotchless. And my very voluptuous thighs have worked themselves all the way up and out the crotch hole. And it now looks like I could enter the World Guinness Book for the largest labia on the planet. And it is hanging there, and I bend over. I am laughing so hard. This can't even be possible. My daughter's horrified, and she's trying to pay me to go show her boyfriend. She's like, you need to go show him. You need to go show him. You look, no, I'm not leaving the room. However, it did take, I'm pretty sure, the 3 of us to remove me from these spanks.
Thanks, Jody.
Thanks.
Okay, so now I'm thinking I'm gonna make it. It should be gallery view for everybody. So that's all of our storytellers for tonight. Jody, your story made me think of like several others of like, because like I'm a petite person, so I feel like I can fit in everything. I can't. But also it made me, so my best friend, I'm going to tell this one super quick, but my best friend, when she got married, her wedding day, like, you know, she didn't feel good. Like the whole kind of day she was like feeling off, and everybody's like, oh, like it's jitters, you're anxious, you're nervous. And she's like, really like don't feel good. So like right after, like it was a Jewish wedding, it's a big to do. We like had our hair done at like 6 a.m. and then we took photos and like, but like come around like noon, she was like, I need to get out of this dress. And she was in Spanx and we had to peel her. And so she had Spanx and a corset dress, and I'm her maid of honor, so you better believe I'm getting her in and out of both of these things on her special day. So like we get her in, we get her out, and it's like we go, we do more photos, we come back in, it's like the unveiling where you see the groom for the first time, and so we go and we do this, and meanwhile we are going back and forth the bridal suite. I'm undoing her corset, we are getting her out, and she is groaning and like just in excruciating pain. Like I've not seen her like this. She's writhing, but she like puts on a good face and gets it back together and goes out like every so often. And she has another friend who's like, so people are like, it's nerves, like have some soda water, have this, you need a drink, here's some wine, here's some champagne. They're like, another friend's like, do some cocaine, like that'll make you feel better. And I'm like, whatever you need, I'm here. And so I'm just like getting her in and out of the dress all night. Finally, it's a Jewish wedding, so there's a doctor who comes to assess her. And she is saying the whole time, she's like, I have appendicitis. Like she called it. And the doctor came and assessed her and was like, yep, you definitely have you need to get to a hospital right now. So she sends me, and she's like, I want you to give my speech. I'm like, I don't think that's something I'm prepared to do at this point. We also all had taken off our dresses at this time because she wasn't in her dress anymore. And in solidarity, we all took off our dresses. So I delivered her speech, said goodbye to her while she left in an ambulance. She was right. Wow. She did have appendicitis. And I mean, that wedding that, you know, sounds like a dream come true, she's also getting divorced. But the moral of that story is, I think, don't wear Spanx and don't get a corset dress and like don't marry people you don't really love. I don't know.
Pitch it to the sign. People pitch it to the sign. Thank you guys for hanging with us. It's after 8:30. We usually try not to go more than an hour and a half. We appreciate everybody coming and hanging out with us. And thank you. We're going to try and do it again. Oh, wait, I got somebody saying something.
Judy Laramore, thank you for your scuba scare, because that sounded absolutely horrifying. And yes. Thank you for sharing your name, too. And if we don't know you and this is your first time here, or
welcome and thank you.
Yes, please, tell your friends, come back.
Message us with tips.
Yeah, help us make this better. Did you enjoy the 20-minute shit show at the time? I'm just making these very concerted faces while I try to think of what face.
So thank you guys. Thank you very much. So we'll say goodbye from the OutLoud Story Slam.
We'll say goodbye. We're gonna go off live. If panelists or anybody else wants to stay on, you can. But if you want to go, you can stop.
Stop live.
Thanks, guys.